I'd like to call the November 19th, 2013 Finance Committee meeting to order. Chair would entertain a motion for the consideration of claims.
Mr. Chair, I would move to pay the consideration of claims in the amount of $581,861.87. Manual checks written in the amount of $50.26. Checks written for payroll liabilities for November 1st, 2013 in the amount of $413,380.62. Elon credit card in the amount of $6,072.26 for a total of $1,001,365.01.
And I'll second.
Okay, any questions on the bills tonight?
I have one, Mr. Chair. Jump to it here. Last page. Oh, hold on. Thought I had it. Yeah, so it'd be page 10 of 13, second from the bottom, 17942. Just curious as to, I suppose that's our portion to LGLP for that settlement?
Your Honor? No, that isn't. We have a $1,000 deductible.
Okay, so what was that part for then?
Are you speaking about the $353.82?
Yeah.
That was what it cost to replace those tires.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
100%
So
cost.
there was no claim to LGLP, we just paid because it was within that $1,000.
There was a claim.
Oh, there.
2 vehicles, and the chief could probably explain that to you better than I could, but two claims were submitted. We paid them both in full for poked tires. What do you call it? Poked tires? It's not.
Slashed tires?
There you go.
Have you guys heard the story about that?
I don't think
Oh,
I
well,
have.
let's have the chief tell you the story. It's kind of interesting.
Good evening. So we had a pursuit coming from Thermopolis down, ultimately down 79 into Riverton, and so we were trying to head them off before they actually got into the population center. And just on the outskirts of town, but within city limits, the officers had put tire spikes on the road to deflate the fleeing vehicle's tires. And as typically happens, they were there set up, and some citizens got in front of the pursuit just because they pulled out of private driveways and ended up right in the trap. And so the officers were trying to direct them around the spikes, and both cars drove right over the spikes. So
Okay.
one of those kind of emergency, sort of unavoidable stuff happens kind of deal.
Okay. That was all I had, Mr. Chair.
Any questions from you?
Yes, I actually had a couple. I had the opportunity to talk to Stephen about it earlier, but I will bring them up just for the benefit of the viewing public, assuming that there is viewing public. The first one was the Apex surveying right at the very beginning of the bills. I just had asked why we were surveying the Big Bend drainage ditch.
Yes, Your Honor, and this Apex is surveying the Big Bend ditch that's off of South Federal there, and that is a part of our project with South Federal or is it North Federal? Yeah, South Federal. And so we are going to be diverting an enormous amount of water into that ditch when this gets all developed, and we're going to have to take ownership of that ditch. So that's
Not storm sewer, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question I had was for the payment to Dave's Asphalt. I just wanted to ensure that that their additional work that we had requested to smooth out Walk Court had actually been completed before we paid him. So.
In Your Honor, that has been completed. They had to do the transition better and do a little chip seal over that area to seal it up.
I think that was all of my questions. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't have any questions this evening, so all those in favor of the approval of claims say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Is there any other business for us tonight, Mr. Weaver?
No more business.
All right, meeting adjourned.
I now call the November 19th, 2013 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Would Councilmember Christensen lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman John Lars Baker.
Here.
Councilwoman Mariella Christensen.
Present.
Councilman Eric Heiser.
Here.
Councilman Rich Guard.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan Fabian.
Here.
Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Mayor Ronald O'Warbness.
And I am present. I declare that we have a quorum this evening. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the approval of the agenda.
Your Honor, I would move to approve the agenda with the exception of removing item number 10, Riverview Road Project, from tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda with the amendment. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I apologize for my voice this evening. I've been fighting a cold for the last 2 weeks, but it looked like so much fun this evening that I just couldn't stay away. So, at any rate, I hope I don't get too raspy. At this time, we have communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given an opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to the council? Okay. Agenda item number 7, consent agenda. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, November 5th, 2013, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, November 19th, 2013, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, November 19th, 2013.
Your Honor.
Yes.
It's the recommendation of the Finance Committee for the approval of claims to be paid in the amount of $581,861.87. Manual checks in the amount of $50.26. Checks written for payroll liabilities for November 1st, 2013 in the amount of $413,380.62. Elin credit card in the amount of $6,072.26 for a total of $1,001,365.01.
Thank you.
Your Honor. At this time, I would request that my objection to the executive session of November 5th be recorded into the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
The chair would entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda item number 8 is DEQ update regarding 422 East Main property. Mr. Weaver?
Yes, Your Honor. We've had a couple of times we've had this on the agenda, and Vicki and her staff are here to give us a little presentation on the update on 422 East Main. As you know, we've had this property in our possession for some time now. We've had many discussions about it. It was determined from the council that we would clean up this property, so we applied for the Brownsfield Assistance Program, which we got accepted for, and now they're in the process of hiring a contractor. So I'll turn the rest of the time over to the DEQ, and they can give us an update and answer any questions for the council. That was the main purpose of this.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate that.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Christy Dobra.
Okay.
So the Daisy Cleaner site in Riverton, that we're in the process of not hiring a contractor. We've already hired one, Stantec Consulting, and they are working out of Salt Lake City, and they are in the process right now of getting the documents together, all the work plans to do the investigation at the site, and those have been actually submitted this week, and they plan to start doing work at the site first week of December. And they're going to be doing monitoring well installation, groundwater sampling from those monitoring wells. They're also going to do oil gas investigations there to determine whether or not there may or may not be a vapor intrusion problem at some of the adjacent buildings, which are the Riverton Ranger building across the street and I believe it's a dance studio. And we also want to make sure that there's not going to be any vapor intrusion issues should you decide to put a building on that property sometime down the road. So right now that's kind of what's on our agenda is we're going to do the investigation. We want to wait till we get the data back from all of our samples that they're going to collect in December, and then we'll know how contaminated it is, what kind of problems we have, if any. And then from there, we'll go on to do a remedial alternatives investigation or evaluation. And that's after we get all the data back. We'll decide if and what we need to do to clean up the site. But that's down the road a little bit. Right now, we're just trying to figure out what problems we have, if any, and so I believe you may have received, it was just a general background sheet that I typed up. I don't know if you guys have any questions for us about what's going on there.
I certainly had a couple questions. I don't know if any of the council does. If anyone have any questions for Ms. Dobler?
Your Honor?
Yes. Councilman Fabian.
Assuming that the type of contamination that is discussed in this, I guess, letter that you wrote, is in fact there, what are some of the types of remediation that would happen? What can we expect to see at that site?
Well, again, that's going to depend on how contaminated it is if we do find that. If it's still in the groundwater, there's a couple different remediation options. There's the option of monitored natural attenuation, which can occur with those chlorinated solvents. There's already a soil vapor extraction and air sparge system installed at the site, and that is because the site was also, it used to be a gas station. So the tanks that were there have been removed, and that portion of the contamination is being remediated by the storage tank program, which we're not really involved in, but we're trying to work with them a little bit so we can not do the same thing twice, basically. So they already have a system installed there that is helping to remediate some of the chlorinated solvents there. So that could be the answer. Based on the data that they've been getting back, it does look like it is helping to clean that up a little bit. They've found some of that in their system, so there's that option. If vapor intrusion happens to be an issue in the adjacent buildings, there's mitigation systems that we could put in the buildings. I'm not super familiar with that, and I'm not anticipating that that's going to be a problem. But if it was, that's something we could do. Anything to add about?
You come up to the microphone, please.
For having all of us. My name is Jules Beck. We are certainly happy to present the data to you all when we get it back, and we can have a conversation about certainly what needs to be done and what that might look like. The remedial alternatives evaluation is is a process to look at how we address what the different kinds of remedies we would look at to address the problem. And we have criteria for weighing the different kinds of remedies. We can discuss that more at length with you about it.
Are those remedies a function of the use of the property or the contamination?
Well, so we have a non-degradation policy for groundwater in the state, so it needs to be cleaned up to what are our standards for groundwater. Maximum contaminant levels are the way that EPA describes those cleanup levels. So we'll need to meet those cleanup levels in groundwater before the
So what that means is it doesn't matter what we plan to use the property for. It just has to do with the level of contamination, whether
as far
it's
as
clean.
groundwater goes, yes.
Okay, that helps.
Yep.
So I'm Vicki Meredith. I'm the Brownsville coordinator for the state of Wyoming for the DEQ. And where use of the property makes a difference is if the contamination is in soil and we figure out that the levels that are in the soil are inappropriate for what we call unrestricted use, which would mean that you could use it for anything you wanted to use it for, then we will come to you and we will say, these are the levels that are in the soils, and this is what the appropriate use could be, whether it could be commercial use, recreational use, or unrestricted. And at the point where we think that it has to be restricted to commercial, industrial, recreational, then the council would have to make a decision at that point whether to restrict that property's use. We'd have to designate a use control area on the property, which is a very easy process for you to do. You could do it as a resolution or as an ordinance. Different councils have done it different ways. Our hope is if there's some contamination in the soil in a very limited source area, that we can pick it up and get it out of there, and then you guys don't have to worry about whether to restrict the property or not. So that's our hope, but until we get in there and figure out what the extent of that contamination is, then, you know, it's kind of up in the air what you can use it for at this point.
And when you're saying that it'll be a while down the road, what are you talking about there in terms of time?
Well, I would say typically if they get the data in December, it takes a couple months for them to process the data and present it to us. And then probably by early spring, and we can on the ground look at the data and figure out whether, I think it's in our scope of work, that if it looks like the source area in the soils is limited, we have the ability to go ahead and remove those soils during this investigation. So, I mean, ideally, we could probably have the property ready for you to use in the spring. If nothing works well for us and it's a lot more contaminated than we think, then I would say it's probably going to be at the end of the year. The end of next year. I mean, you know, it could be anywhere from this spring to next year.
And then this work will start after December, is my understanding. And so will that have to be blocked off, or can it continue to be used as a parking lot while you're doing your...
While they're doing the work, it parking lot.
Okay, so after December, we would have to block it off and not allow public use of it, is what I'm asking.
Yes, I didn't know it was being used as a parking lot right now.
It is? Yes. All you have to do is drive by it. It's pretty obvious. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's no big secret, so.
Your Honor,
Yes. Councilman Card.
What led you to think that the Ranger building or the dance studio might be contaminated?
Well, contaminated with the vapors from the chlorinated solvents. And the reason we were thinking that that could potentially be an issue is because in the past, the storage tank program, when they've collected their groundwater samples from the wells that are already installed, they've also tested for the chlorinated solvents, and they've found those in groundwater. Recently, they've actually been very low levels, but in the past, they've been higher. And since the groundwater is migrating, is flowing towards those buildings, there's a potential that the contamination in the groundwater could impact the buildings with the vapor migrating upwards.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions that anyone has? Anything else you would like to share with us?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. And we're very anxious to learn the fate of that piece of property. You know, it's a prime location in our community, and it's very important for us to do what we can for it. So.
Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering, what kind of involvement does the council want us to continue to have with you throughout this process? Do you want us to just continue to interact with Steve? Do you want us to send the reports to you all? Do you want us to report back to you once we get the data after December and tell you what we found? How you want to keep in the loop?
I think if you just stay in contact with Mr. Weaver, and if there's data or anything, he can share it with the council, and then at the point in time that we feel that we need to have another meeting like this, why then we can schedule that. So thank you very much for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. Okay. Public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 13-011, door-to-door solicitation. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Sandy and Mike has been working on this, and I'm going to defer it to Sandy to go over the order.
Thank you. I'm going to just give you a little background. It was in October of 2011 that council had discussed this previously in regulating the commercial door-to-door sales. When Mike and I discussed this, we decided there were some benefits providing some regulatory oversight, and those include individual salespersons must provide some form of valid identification in order to obtain a permit. This keeps people from being quite so anonymous while moving through our community neighborhoods. When these salespeople do come to town, both the police department and other departments in the city do get quite a few calls. It's amazing how many calls we will get during the time period that the salesmen are here, and some of it depends on how aggressive that they are. Second thing is the issuance of a permit allows the revocation of the permit for rude or aggressive behavior. This proposed ordinance allows homeowners to opt out of commercial door-to-door sales by simply posting a no solicitation sign. And this proposed ordinance does not limit fundraising efforts or people going door-to-door for nonprofit groups. Chief Broadhead has communicated with Rick Sollers and our lawyer, and he felt that it would be a constitutional problem to only have this ordinance apply to people from out of town. Additionally, if one of our stated objective is to have a permit that can be revoked for overly aggressive tactics, then that might also be a violation, as it doesn't give us the authority to take a permit away from a local, meaning they could behave one way and people from out of town would be held to a different standard. This is why we are recommending all door-to-door solicitations be required to obtain a permit. We did have some alternatives where we could increase or lower the permit fees. We came up with some fees just as an idea. We kept them rather low. We found fees in ordinances from other municipalities, $150. I think one was even $300 and some dollars. What we did was to basically just cover staff cost. We decided that the permit application by the company or the person who's managing that would be $25, and then each individual salesman would be an additional $5, and we would issue them a separate, they would carry a copy of the permit and a separate information paper that would tell who they are. They would have to have that permit, that information along with their photo ID, so that we could make sure that they had in fact registered to be able to sell this product. And that was basically why we charged the extra little fee. But we felt that this was a very simple solution to this. We kept everything as concise as we could, and would give the police department the ability then to pursue more aggressive salesmen, and possibly to limit the salesman from going to places where the residents in town didn't want to be solicited. A sign would still, each resident who did not want solicitors would still have to post a sign. That would be something that would be required. And then at that time, if a salesman did go to their house, then they could be fined, because we would have an ordinance in place.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion at this time for the public hearing on ordinance number 13-011.
Your Honor, I'd move to open the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I now declare the public hearing is open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Good evening.
Hi, this is Stephanie Joy. So you're saying that like little kids, like in middle school, they have to buy a permit to sell, like if they're selling charity for Toys for Tots, or if they're in high school, they're selling FFA tickets. They have to get a permit before they can sell to other people.
I think that's probably part of our discussion this evening. That's not our intent, to have non-commercial folks that are out selling candy or something like that to run into a problem, but it is something that we'll have to consider. And I think in the discussion this evening, why you'll hear that point raised. So,
Your Honor, just as a point of clarification, as the policy is written right now, or as the ordinance is written right now, Section D specifically states, nothing in this permit shall be construed as to limit or require a permit for individuals collecting for nonprofit organizations or fundraising efforts. So as the ordinance is written right now, the answer to your question would be no. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Jim? No? Okay.
Seeing none, Your Honor, I'd move to close public hearing.
Okay, it's
Second.
been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion to close the public hearing is approved. Okay, would the city clerk please read ordinance number 13-011 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 13-001, first reading. An ordinance amending Title V, the business licenses and regulations of the Riverton Municipal Code for the City of Riverton, adding Chapter 5.28, door-to-door solicitation, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion for the consideration of ordinance number 13-011.
I would move to approve proposed ordinance number 13-001 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I guess it seems to me right now, the way that the ordinance is written, and from what we discussed in the pre-meeting, there seems to be a lot of mud in the water, so to speak. Whether or not we can restrict, item D for nonprofit organizations or not, if that is the case and we are allowed to, I would love to see the language added back in that we restrict this only to out-of-town salespeople. That was the original intent, was to try to keep track of those who are coming into our community that we didn't know and to address a small problem. And now it seems like we've got constitutional questions and whether or not we can do that. And I don't remember some of the other ordinance from other cities, what the limitations and things were, but right now, I can't be supportive of this if it puts a hamper on local business. I don't think that was the intent of having a door-to-door solicitation, is having local people come and get a permit. And then there's still some questions on whether or not political activity candidates would need to have one, or so it seems like there's a lot of confusion there. So at least for tonight, I can't vote in the affirmative of requiring local Fremont County residents to get a business license to knock on a door. I see the purpose. I'd love to give the police department the opportunity to have the teeth to enforce non-solicitation signs on people's homes. And I think if we can do that without targeting local business people, I think that would be a good thing. But I don't know that this does that at this point in time. So
Okay, thank you.
I won't be voting in favor of this tonight.
Was it my understanding, Sandy, that our attorney suggested that it was not legal for us to restrict it to is that not correct?
That is correct. Chief Broadhead could probably address that. He's the one that talked to Mr. Sollers.
Okay. Chief?
Your Honor, as it relates to that specific item, our attorney had some concerns about the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, that we couldn't treat out-of-town commercial salesmen differently than local resident commercial salesmen. That was the imbalance that that people who have like purposes, that is commercial sales,
Okay. Okay.
Your Honor.
Yes. I think Councilman Christensen had a question.
Yes, Your Honor. After Councilman Smith's comment, I would request that the attorney give us a statement regarding that, and maybe be at the next meeting so he could explain that to us. And
I think
so
that would be a
we're
good
clear about that.
suggestion.
Yeah, thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes. Councilman Fabian.
So first of all, I did forward some of the material that I had been reading to Stephen, so I tried to forward it to the council, but I'm not, for some reason it wasn't able to go out. So I forwarded it to Stephen, who hopefully can forward it on. And I guess for me personally at this time, I think that to go forward with the ordinance as written would expose the city to significant legal issues, or could anyways expose us to that, and I would request that this be tabled until we can get a firm answer on the rest of these questions from our attorney.
Okay. Okay. Do we need a motion on that?
So I think he just moves to table it. Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay. I have one other question, I guess. I don't know if it's legal to go ahead.
Your Honor, we do need to withdraw the motion first.
As a point of order, Your Honor, was that a motion to table? You said you request. Is that a motion?
I would like to motion to table, but apparently you have to withdraw your motions for me to do so, I guess. So.
Okay, and is there a second?
Well, it'd have to be the people that made the motion, correct? So I would move to withdraw my motion.
To do what?
To approve the ordinance.
Well, Your Honor, it seems to me that the way to do that would be that the motion on the floor is to approve the ordinance, and we're going to table discussion on it until the next time we meet. Then that motion would still be in place. And then the next time we meet, we would have clarification from the attorney, and then we could pick up this conversation at a later point, and then eventually we'd get to the point where we would vote on the motion.
And we don't need a motion on the table.
Essentially, I believe we need a second for the motion to table, which then would have to be voted, and the motion that's in effect would remain in effect when this is brought back up, is my understanding. Am I wrong?
That's the way I understand it. And so my question to Councilman Fabian was whether or not he moved.
That was a motion, yes.
Okay, I will second that.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, solves that problem.
Are we in violation?
Well, Your Honor, we were just discussing that we essentially had two motions on the table, and the first one wasn't voted on, so we made another motion. That's
I
our
think,
only concern.
Your Honor, the clarification comes from the fact that you can table something prior to it being moved on to be voted on. Once it's been moved and seconded to vote on, the vote has to occur. You can't table it at that point.
All right.
So that's where me withdrawing my motion and with the permission of the seconder takes that, and he can then make a motion to table.
All right, we messed up then.
In other words, we can't just leave a motion to vote that's been seconded out there in the abyss or on the table until the next meeting. We can leave the item, we can table the item, and then discuss it and maybe bring it up for a vote at the next meeting.
Your Honor, we're not even supposed to discuss it until it's been moved.
Say again, please.
We're not even supposed to discuss it until there's a motion. Okay, so
how can you have a motion to table then?
no. So we're discussing it. There's a motion and a second. Okay, so we discussed that. We've decided that we need further information before we can vote. We can't get that information at this meeting. We've tabled we're going to table the discussion. We voted to table the discussion. Okay, that was seconded and it passed. And so that we're going to table that until the next time we meet. That will be on the agenda in 2 weeks. It'll come back up in the agenda. We'll move to take it off the table at that time. The motion will still be in effect. Okay, we'll discuss it some more. We'll have additional information, and then we can call for a question and vote on first reading. I believe that if we dig into Roberts, that's what we'll find.
Okay.
I'm sensing disagreement from staff. That's the only reason. I am not disagreeing with you, but I am sensing disagreement from staff, so.
How would the staff like this to
I'm
look?
sensing that we all understand what it is that we're wanting to
Yeah, the
accomplish
intent is
without getting
clear.
lost in the minutia. So, yes,
Your Honor, I think it ultimately does the same thing.
okay. So we're okay
We'll
to
call it a
just
draw.
table and these two can hash it out
You'll
later.
prove to me tomorrow that I was wrong.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate that. Okay, then we will consider that agenda item tabled until our next meeting. Agenda item number 10 has been pulled. The Riverview Road Project, reports and comments, council committee reports and council members roundtable. Councilman Baker, what have you been up to?
Well, Your Honor, we have a Volunteers of America meeting tomorrow at 11:30, but I can only report on the meeting that's coming up, not on one that has been recently attended. No mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes. We're all happy for that. Okay.
Well, we had plenty of West Nile virus in the state of Wyoming this year.
Had how many?
We had plenty of West Nile virus in the state of Wyoming this year. I think 13 or 15 cases, neuroinvasive disease cases. So that's a significant increase in West Nile virus. So temperature related.
Okay. Sounds great. Councilman Heiser.
I have nothing further tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilman Guard.
Your Honor, I did attend the Chamber of Commerce board meeting on the 7th. They're doing well, very active. The board seems to be in better shape than it has been in times past. They're actively doing different activities to try to raise awareness there. They were involved in the trick or treat on Main Street, and they're looking forward to the Christmas tree activities on Main Street. Other than that, I think I was not able to stay for the length of the meeting. I had another prior commitment, and so I believe they're in good shape. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Fabian.
Thank you, Your Honor. There is a animal shelter board meeting tomorrow evening, which I hope to attend, and other than that, they, I believe it was just this past week, had their grand, quote-unquote grand opening. They did their deep cleaning, and they actually built a new area for the cats within the shelter that allows multiple cats to live within one giant cage, and they call it a cat colony. Apparently it's much more natural for the cats this way, and so you can put a whole bunch of cats in one really big cage, and actually people can go into that cage. Obviously they make sure the cats are 100% healthy before allowing them to all go in together, but it's kind of a interesting new addition to the facility, so if you haven't been down there, you should go check it out.
Mm-hmm. So individuals can go into the area then?
Yeah, there's a big door, and you can go in and hang out with the cats, and they all have all these crazy things to climb on and jump on and whatever. It's quite interesting.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Smith.
Nothing further tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilman Christensen.
Your Honor, nothing to report on any meetings, but we will be having an airport board meeting Friday, and tomorrow afternoon JViation will be here to report on how the funding for the state of Wyoming is dispersed regarding aviation, so that'll be interesting. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Administrator's report.
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to put a plug in for the animal shelter. They did a great job out there. We adopted our second cat out there, and the staff was wonderful. They were very kind, and they just have a tender heart for those animals, and they do a great job. The chief and I went over to the senior center yesterday and had a good discussion with several of the seniors around there, and we just kind of had an informal discussion and bring up any topic they want. A lot of things related to safety concerns, related to the rails to trails and aesthetics of the community that they brought up, and we discussed those we were there for about an hour and a half. Wanted to give a little bit of update on the 1%. A lot of people have been asking what we've been doing with the 1%. Obviously, our first project was the Watt Court. That's the first completed project for the 1%. The second one is the Woodridge Estates, which is, they've started some of the concrete work, but with weather and those type of things, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to finish that up. Then they'll start the paving of that in the spring. And then the final one is the big concrete replacement one that's further on in the spring. That's a fairly significant one, so just wanted to let people know about that. Also, just to let you know that Paul Throckmorton's wife passed away last night.
That's too bad.
Oh, darn.
Okay. I don't have a lot to report, except I'm fighting this darn cold. I spent a week out in Southern California, and it's supposed to be bright and shiny and warm and all the places to go. And so it certainly was all of that, but it was a vacation from hell. Is the only way I can interpret it. It was just drinking massive doses of Robitussin, it seemed like. And anyway, it wasn't all the fun it could have been. But Marilyn is still out there, and they're going to keep her for another 6 months, is my understanding. So it's really helping their community. draw a lot of people. We talked to several businesses in the area, and they all spoke very highly of her. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. I also wanted to note the article in the Casper paper this morning talks about this as being the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's famous remarks at Gettysburg. And so I think that's something that as you get a little older, where you start to get a little different vision of how things work out. And having lived around in Riverton for the last 70 years, I can remember when I was living on Broadway that it was unpaved, and cars would go down it, and boy, the dust would just swirl everywhere. And then when Willow Wells Corbett came in, in order to pave Broadway, they had to widen it, and then there was the massive battle over all of the cottonwood trees that were along Broadway and how you couldn't cut down these beautiful trees. And it was just those kinds of battles that have been going on. And then to see our beautiful college up here and our new Job Corps that's coming in, and the movement forward over time is really kind of interesting and inspirational. This piece of property that we're sitting on right now, where Safeway and this building is, used to be Nyberger's farm, and I can remember cows grazing in this area here. Buddy Paul had his potato cellar just right across the way over here. And so there's been a lot of changes, and they're good changes, and our community is growing and moving forward in a positive way. And it's just due to councils like this that are willing to spend the time and to try to make things forward. And we don't always agree on what it is, but I think we all have the same intention to make a beautiful community that we can all live with and enjoy. So at any rate, I apologize once again for sounding so growly, but I don't feel too bad, so that's a blessing. But I guess at this time we'll go into executive session on personnel. The chair would entertain a motion to convene into executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, right to practice, dismissal, complaints, or charges against a public officer, professional person, or employee in accordance with Wyoming Statute 16-4-405 AII, and for the purpose of considering offers, tendering wages, salary, benefits, or terms of employment during negotiations in accordance with Wyoming Statute 16-4-405 AX.
I would move to convene into executive session for the purpose of personnel.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to reconvene into regular session.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to reconvene into regular session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to reconvene. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We need,
Your Honor, I would make a motion to give the mayor and the city administrator the authority to enter into a new contract for the position of public defender.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the regular council meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.